Welcome to the Emblem Support Podcast. I am your host, Ordo, and I'm joined today by my A-plus support partner, Cardwiz.
Build an army, trust nobody, except for us, as we guide you and you join us on our journey throughout the history and the present and the future of one of our favorite video games franchises, Fire Emblem.
Oh man, this has been a long time in the making, mostly because of my own stupidity, but we are finally here and we're finally recording this prologue episode to kind of give you a preview of what we're all about. So I figure we start off by talking about what our Fire Emblem experience is, because I think that's one of the most key things that we have to talk about before we go into anything else. So Cardwiz, what is your Fire Emblem experience?
My Fire Emblem experience is one day in high school, my little brother ended up getting a Game Boy Advance game, and because we were brothers, we just traded off games all the time. I picked it up, played this weird strategy game that reminded me of Advance Wars, and I absolutely fell in love. That, of course, being Fire Emblem 7, the very first Fire Emblem that came out in America. And that is the game that I always played games in the past. That's the game that got me into being a gamer, I would say. And I've loved Fire Emblem ever since, even though I've hated some of it, as we will eventually get to. But that is the game that made me a huge fan. It made me love this franchise more than just about any other. I'm passionate about it, and I want to do this podcast with you, and we can further grow that passion and hopefully share it with others.
Yeah, I'm sort of a similar situation with you. Obviously, most Americans, or I guess Europeans too, their first experience was Smash Brothers Melee when you had Roy and Marth. And so, although I was interested in it, and I actually did have a Game Boy Advance during that time, I didn't find Fire Emblem until like 2007 or 2008. I was doing this thing where I saw all these different franchises in Super Smash Brothers, and it was before Brawl came out. I remember that much. And I was like, I kind of hate that I don't know about some of these series. Someone will play a game, or at least try to play a game from series that I haven't played, and one of them was Fire Emblem. So what ended up happening is that I found Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones, and I actually confused it for Fire Emblem Blazing Sword. And I was just like, well, this doesn't look like Roy or Marth on the cover, so I guess I'll check it out. And I only learned that the previous game was the first game that actually came here and had Eliwood instead of Roy, and that's pretty much how it was for me. And just like you, I've loved it and hated it ever since then.
Yeah, I remember after falling in love with Fire Emblem 7, I went back into the old Nintendo Power archives that I had, just digging through the magazines for any news on Fire Emblem. And I remember just being so mad and heartbroken when I found an old one that said, yeah, we're getting Fire Emblem 6, this game with Roy, the guy from Melee. We're getting that game. And that kind of just dropped and never happened, sadly. Maybe it'll happen one day, but not going to get my hopes up too high.
Yeah, the funny thing about that is that epilogue that we have that would actually lead into that game, the European version doesn't have it. I guess they figured out by then, like, yeah, we're not going to bring it over, so we'll just cut that out.
Yeah, they broke my heart and broke the hearts of thousands and thousands of people with that ending, which is a really good and really creepy ending with a great image.
Yeah. What I have learned, though, is that you can't trust people with green hair in Fire Emblem, and I'll tell you why. We'll get to it eventually, but Nino inexplicably causes all the events in Fire Emblem the Blazing Blade. I'm sorry, Binding Blade.
Okay. That would not surprise me. She has a tendency to have horrible things happen around her.
And then let's jump forward to Fire Emblem Fates. A lot of the stuff that happens there is because of Kaze, who is a green-haired ninja. So what I've got from this is that you cannot trust the people with green hair. They are evil. Do not talk to them. Do not mess with them.
If you're listening to this right now and have no idea who the names of these people are, hopefully we'll be able to explain them to you as we go through the games and explain the story and detail these characters who we've grown to love, hate, and just everything. And hopefully we can share that with you. And we're going to in the coming weeks, months, maybe years.
So, since we're on the topic of characters, and that's one of our hallmarks for why we wanted to do this. I mean, who are some of your favorite characters, or I guess just favorite lords in general?
My favorite lords, My first Lord is always going to be one of my favorites. Playing with Lynn in Fire Emblem 7, that tutorial, which is just a great tutorial to learn how to play just the mechanics of Fire Emblem. Journeying, following her journey, classic hero's journey of just that person who's just out in the plains, doesn't know her destiny, discovers it, and goes to try to conquer the evil lords as she tries to claim the throne. Just classic story. I love that story. There's a reason it's sort of the classic hero's trope. It's a great story. I love the character, and plus it's a great design. She will always be one of my favorites.
Same. Give me just a second.
Trying to think of other lords, like Ike, of course, from Path of Radiance. He is just another great hero's journey, and what's neat about him is that he isn't royalty. He's just sort of a guy who ends up taking the mantle of being the hero.
Yeah. His journey is a unique one, and I hope I'll be able to explore it again, because I've only been able to play this game once through because of the insane prices that Path of Radiance has ballooned up to.
Yeah, that GameCube copy of Path of Radiance is currently my retirement plan at the moment.
Judging by the Amazon and eBay prices, you're probably not far off. I think the last time I looked at an Amazon price, it was like $325.
Yes, and Nintendo's probably never going to re-release it, so those prices are just going to keep on rising.
Yep. The more years that go by, the more Ike appearances we have, the higher that price is going to go. Anyway, some of my favorite lords, I kind of agree with you. After I played Sacred Stones, but I really didn't understand. I didn't really get the mechanics, and I kind of had to learn that game the hard way. I say hard, but looking back, Sacred Stones is a pretty easy game. It's only when I went back to play Lynn Ellwood and Hector's game that I played that tutorial. I'm like, oh, okay, this is how all this stuff works. I get it now. And so Lynn and Ellwood became favorites of mine. I didn't like Hector until probably years and years later. Like you, I like Ike because he has kind of like that humble upbringing, and then everything that happens to him is just it's like a whirlwind of events that happens to him.
Yeah, I love his journey in Path of Radiance is great, and I haven't replayed Radiant Dawn since it first came out, so I look forward to reliving that one.
I traded Radiant Dawn a long time ago because I'd never played it, and I didn't like it. I was like, I never played this. I don't like it. It's worth $35 for a trade-in, so I was like, screw it. I don't need it.
Yeah, I made that same choice with many games, but I think I kept Radiant Dawn. It's in a box somewhere if I can find it.
Yeah, well, mine also had the problem when I played Path of Radiance, I was still somewhat new, so I put it on easy, and apparently if it was on easy, you can't transfer your game because the game will just lock up. You have to send your game back to Nintendo. Yeah, so if you try to transfer your data after you've played an easy mode on Path of Radiance, you have to send your game back to Nintendo, and Nintendo sends it back to you like an update or something on it. I can't remember what the deal with that is.
Get good, scrub. Get the day one patch.
If only. So I'm trying to think of who else. Oh yeah, I love Marth. He's just a great dude. Simple, kind-hearted, kind of relatable. I really like him.
He seems nice. I've only played the DS version of his game, and I kind of quit that one because I kind of hated it for multiple reasons. Chief one being the art style. I think it's one of the ugliest games in the franchise, but that's my opinion. I had a lot of other qualms with that game, but Marth and Marth character was not one of them.
Yeah, he always came off as just, again, like I said, he's a really kind-hearted, really humble guy. He hates fighting, but he knows that he has to do it. He's not whining about it. He's like, look, I got to do it. It sucks. And I don't know. It's kind of funny because he loses his kingdom, and then he's like, you know what? I'm just going to conquer everything and take my country back, and then he does it.
Oh, what about the blonde people from Fire Emblem Warriors, or the generic people from Fire Emblem Heroes, whose names I don't know?
I can't stand Alphonse. Sharina's all right. Anna's a familiar face. The banana twins are both. Well, again, I don't know. Maybe I just hate male characters.
You are a man hater. Nah, you like Ike and Elliewood, so just like they have to have some sort of personality, and I don't remember any of those having personality at all.
Oh, I know what it is. It's Rowan and Liliana, or Ileana, or something like that. Ileana's kind of, she's just okay, I guess. She's very similar to Sharina. And then Rowan, I can't stand him. He's that, I gotta be the knight, I gotta be the hero. He's like every bad archetypal, and again, this is Fire Emblem we're talking about, every archetypal like shonen anime hero. He's very, like, you put some, like, put 3 lines on each side of his face, combined with his banana-colored hair, he's Naruto. Easily.
As you're talking about Ileana, I just keep on thinking about, like, oh, this poor sick girl from Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, or Liliana, Hector's daughter from Fire Emblem 6.
Yeah, I could have her name wrong. I call them the Banana Twins because I don't really care for either one of them. Corrin, boy.
Isn't that your favorite? Don't you love the...
No.
Oh, no.
No,
Yeah.
I hate Corrin. I'll give it that the female version does kind of have a nice design, and she does have a better voice actor than the male counterpart. And honestly, she's not actually bad in Fire Emblem Warriors. It kind of feels like you take her outside of like Fire Emblem Fates, and she's just fine.
Fire Emblem Fates is another Fire Emblem game that I quit halfway through because I couldn't stand it, and Corrin was a big reason for it. But maybe I'll find love for the character anew once I get back to playing it again.
I mean, you're not the only one. I heard on both sides. People who played Birthright and people who played Conquest, they basically just stopped at chapter 15. So there has to be some sort of common thread, and we'll explore that sometime.
Sometime in the future.
I guess in short, I've played all international released Fire Emblems up to this point. That does not include Three Houses because it's 2018. That game's not coming out till 2019.
Yes, that generic date of 2019. When I just look up when this Three House releases, just says 2019.
And you got to cross your fingers that it's not January or February because that list, or not that list, but that scheduling for game releases is so ridiculously packed.
And plus the fact that we've pretty much heard not much about the game at this point, it makes me nervous if it's an early release, if it's a first quarter release.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like it had a very low energy reveal. We'll have to watch it again, but it was pretty low energy from what I remember.
Yeah, but what little art they showed I liked, and the graphics didn't look bad. I want to be optimistic. Let me be optimistic. Don't let it suck. Don't pull a Fire Emblem Fates and split it into 3 stories with your 3 houses. Oh.
And don't even have any of the writing staff from Fates, because that was god-awful train wreck. And I don't want to spend all this time slandering Fates. So anyway, like I said, all international titles, and I've played like the first 2 chapters of Genealogy, which I did not really like.
That's the Super Nintendo one, right? Or
Yeah.
one of the Super Nintendo ones.
Yeah. That's Fire Emblem 4, the one that, everyone seems to be, off their rocker for. I actually tried it out for that specific purpose, and I got to like the 2nd chapter. I'm just like, this is just really dull. I'm sure like it has a great story like within it, because all the stuff that I see about its characters and world or whatnot through various videos on YouTube are fantastic. But having to sit through that game and watch it play itself, I've told the story 1,000 times, but like I was watching this I was watching everything go down. I was just like, man, I'm kind of hungry. I'm going to make a sandwich. I make my sandwich, I come back, and the game is still going through its like enemy phases. I'm like, good God, this is just too much.
I just remember back in the day in 2004 on the GameFAQs message boards talking about Fire Emblem game. It's just like, yeah, I really love this Fire Emblem 7. I can't imagine a better game. And people would always say, well, you should play Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy Wars and Fire Emblem Gaiden. Those are the true Fire Emblem experiences. And it kind of turned me away from those. One goal of this podcast, I don't want to be the snob. I'm going to hold up Fire Emblem 7 and a bunch of other games. I don't want to be the snob to push people away.
Yeah, that's That's one thing that's one thing I was thinking about when we were talking about Fates. Off mic is that there are things I like about Fates, and there are things I don't really like about Fates. You know, same for Awakening. There's things I like about Awakening, and there's things I really don't like about Awakening, and it's kind of it's a little bit of a weird position not to want to put people off by just slandering those games. Because I want to be welcoming. I want people to listen to the podcast, and I want people to really enjoy. I want this to be a distraction, something you can just turn on while you're having to do some mundane work, or listen to your other podcasts, something like that.
Yes, Fire Emblem was a great experience. It's something I love. I want to try to be a little bit more positive. I'm trying to think of things I can be positive about Fates, because we've just been really negative on it.
Yeah.
I love the little town experience. I loved the use of the street pass, going around and just I can visit other people's little castles. It was just a weird little thing. It didn't add too much, but it was just a neat little thing that I got a little bit of enjoyment out of that I never would have thought to ask for from a Fire Emblem game.
Yeah, the My Castle stuff was actually really fun. I remember I really pimped out my castle on Conquest. I didn't put as much effort into my other castles on Birthright and Revelations, but that first castle, it was really good. It was really fun to build, and kind of see you have this little town, and your army kind of hangs out there and does stuff and whatnot. And then if you wanted to take it online and do battles and stuff, that was also really cool.
I remember 2 months into that game's release, we were having a conversation over Xbox Live, and you were telling me, oh yeah, the first person mode is also interesting too, and just remember having my mind blown a little bit.
Yeah, apparently they actually wanted to have that where you could actually run around the town in that mode, and they couldn't implement that in time, but that ended up getting carried over to the Gaiden remake, Echoes.
Echoes is so much fun. That's going to be another one we gush about, probably.
Yeah, I've only played through it once, and I really loved it. That's going to be a fun one to go through and talk about again.
I can't wait to replay that. And something that we're going to talk to, I don't know how much we'll get into it in this episode, but I want to be replaying these games, and I want to replay them with you, my friend, and with you, the listener out there, so we can just talk about these experiences and we can share them with each other.
Yeah, we can go ahead and announce it right now. Surely you've listened to other podcasts where they kind of have the Game Informer podcast is a good example, where they have a game club and they play through to a certain part, and they say, hey, we're only going to play through up to X level or X chapter, or only going to play through to X trophy achievement. So we're going to do something like that where we play through a certain amount of chapters. We'll take notes. We'll discuss it. We'll say who's our MVP. How we think the story is. We'll talk about the characters a little bit, and we got to flesh that out just a little bit more. But that's something we're looking at on the horizon.
Mm-hmm. We'll definitely talk about that more in the future. But I'm already giddy with anticipation of just replaying some of these old games I love and some that I hated. And just going through all that again, feeling everything again, and seeing how things turn out differently for each of us.
Definitely wondering if my Shadow Dragon playthrough will end up like my other Shadow Dragon playthrough, where it just ended up being Minerva, the White Wings, and Sita just wrecking everything in sight. Meanwhile, Martha's also here.
All Archer playthrough coming up soon.
Oh boy, that's. You could.
I could. Maybe I will. Oh, that'll be fun.
So we have there's a reason why this is called the Emblem Support Podcast, and it's kind of like the whole reason why this came together, and it's because you and I have a huge love for the support conversations.
Yes, it's the thing that puts Fire Emblem above all those other games, especially at the time when I first played it. I never played a game where these people that you're sending onto the battlefield are actually people. You have an army of 40 people, all individual characters with our own desires, wants, and needs. In the context of the story, it's not like Advance Wars where you just send out thousands of just nameless, faceless troops. These are people, and you want to fight to protect, not only to advance the story and protect the kingdom, you want to protect these people.
Yeah, because you form a character bond with these. My favorite character in the entire franchise is Joshua. I thought he was kind of this cool, slick gambler guy, but then kind of midway through the story, you end up learning something about him, and it kind of changes how you look at him. Or, kind of going back one game to Raven, and like how he has this backstory. His goals aren't motivated by wanting to save the world or help the army. It's motivated by revenge against one of the main characters. And you see his story play out with his long lost sister and one of his best friends or lover, however you want to see that.
Yeah, you can read that intention into it. But personally, like I even love like the smaller ideas, the smaller characters. Yeah, I know it's sort of a meme now. It's been a meme for years, but I swear I loved this character before it became a meme. I love Dorcas. Dorcas is just a man who wants to protect his wife and earn money for his family. It's as simple as base a motivation as you can, but it is so relatable and I fell in love with that character because of it. I love that these people feel, in a lot of cases, human. In some cases, they feel like tropes, but I love it when they can feel human and when you can connect with them.
Yeah, I mean, and so we'll pick a character. I don't want to say we'll talk about their supports, but one thing I want to do is actually, you know what? I'm going to save that for when we get to it. You already know what it is, certain scenarios, but it's something that's been kind of cooking in my mind, but I don't want to reveal it just yet. I want to keep that keep that secret for right now. So, now that you know a little bit about us, a little bit about our play styles, I guess we'll move on to some Fire Emblem-esque news. I mean, I don't really consider us to be a news podcast, but there's some noteworthy things that have been happening around it. We're gonna, we'll chit chat about them.
As we are recording this now, it is the day after the last Fire Emblem, or not Fire Emblem, the last Super Smash Bros. Direct. And a lot of things have been revealed. New characters, not new Fire Emblem characters, but a new mode, which could have story implications to the Fire Emblem universe and all the other Nintendo universes.
Everybody is here, and now everybody is dead except for Kirby. Now, we don't want to talk about jump into Smash too much, but Fire Emblem and Smash are pretty intertwined. So I actually have this write-up of characters that are appearing for the new Spirits mode, and basically it's like you can use the spirits of these characters to power up the fighters that are in the game. And so Vincent ASM on Serenus Forest has a post up talking about these. I'll leave a link to that to the description. But even in his, it says confirmed spirit. Special thanks to Crom / the Prince of Iris on Twitter for pointing out the spirits in the Japanese Direct. So,
I'm sitting here. I'm looking forward to hearing this because I got to be honest. During the spirits section of the Direct, I was completely zoning out and being angry because they're adding the stupid gacha game mechanic instead of doing an actual adventure mode. What the heck, Nintendo? I'm no longer buying. This game sucks. I'm out.
I mean, I actually did kind of zone out. I was just like, oh my god, enough. We get it. There's no reason for this to be 40 minutes so you can talk about every little thing. But I think Masahiro Sakurai is he's a very meticulous guy. He wants to leave no stone unturned. So these are some of the spirits from the Fire Emblem that were confirmed or seen in that Direct, and we'll take a look at them. So in Shadow Dragon, we have Jagan, Reese, and this one's an interesting. It's Board, Cord, and Barch, and they're all three one sticker. And then for the very last one to close out Shadow Dragon, we have Nina, or Nina. I'm not really sure how you say her name properly.
Hopefully we'll find out. And one of the neat things about that possible spirits mode that could be interesting is apparently the spirits, or at least some of the spirits, can evolve, and it'll be neat. It'll be like a class promotion upgrade. So
yeah, apparently if they have multiple forms, which I'll tackle when we get to our very last person, which we actually saw directly. So from Genealogy of the Holy War, we've got only Sigurd and Salif, or Salice, depending on what translation you're looking at. I don't know if I've actually heard his name said out loud, but I think it's Salif.
Makes sense, because I think those are the only two whose names I actually recognize from what I've heard about that game.
Yeah, well, did you get any of the Awakening DLC?
Very little of it.
Okay. I was about to say, you would have seen him there. He's blue-haired. He has blue hair, of course. Okay. He has a band around his head, and he's kind of looks like a samurai from this game. But
I saw him. I didn't mess with the card mechanics in Awakenings very much.
Yeah, the in here I can't pronounce what that word is supposed to be, so I'll just call them the E cards. But I did know something interesting. Like a lot of these characters are using their original artwork, and when I looked at the picture, and again, it could have been just the picture that they have listed here, but the artwork for Sigurd and Sleep is their like original artwork, and it looks heavily degraded. So I'm guessing that artwork probably hasn't been kept up in like good condition.
Well, hopefully, I assume some of it would at least go through a redesign. Like we saw what they did for Alm and Celica, if you remember their original artwork.
Yeah, but the reason why I kind of bring that up is because the board, cord, and Barst Spirit, they use their artwork from the old Fire Emblem trading card game, not the Cypher that's currently running, but the old Fire Emblem game from like the 90s. And their artwork actually looks good. It's very kind of 90s anime. So I was like, well, that same card game has both Genealogy and Thracia 776 in it, so why not use that artwork? Unless that's supposed to be their upgraded, or hell, like Fire Emblem Heroes has a fantastic Sigurd and Sleeve. They look good.
I know I've seen the Sigurd one. I do think that's a good looking design.
I mean, I said I didn't really like Genealogy from the small parts I played, but almost every single like design in that game I have always loved. Like, it has some of the best looking design characters I've ever seen.
Hopefully we'll be able to eventually get to play that one day, probably pretty much guaranteed on an emulator of some sort. Not that I've ever played or touched an emulator in my life, of course.
It's dirty and filthy and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Anyways, moving on though. From Blazing Blade, we got Eliwood and Nino.
Of course, we already got Lynn as an assist trophy thing. Then might as well get Eliwood in there as a sticker spirit.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was definitely wondering when we were going through it. But this is before I saw this list. Is that would we get anything that was because the only older character I'd seen at the time was Micaiah, and I was like, are we going to get anything older than that? And I was like, oh wait, well, Roy's in the game. Maybe we'll see some Fire Emblem Binding Blade characters. And funnily enough, this list does not have any Binding Blade characters on it. But again, this is like a very, very early list, so knowing how Sakurai is with putting stuff in the game, obviously this list is going to expand.
Oh yeah, there are going to be so many. Like I barely played Brawl, but that thing had so many stickers in it, and Ultimate is going to have all of these spirits. There are going to be so many, and I wouldn't be surprised if more were added as part of the DLC.
Yeah, that's probably true too. Or even like free updates, because they've been doing a lot of free updates with their stuff as well. From Sacred Stones, we've got Erica, Ephraim, and Leon.
Well, okay, Leon makes sense. I would have thought Inez or Joshua, but
they better have Joshua.
Well, Rachel. Of course, they better have Joshua.
I mean, Brawl had Joshua.
Flip a coin, heads you win, match, tails you lose.
I think his was like something like slash damage or something. I don't think he was exclusive to Marth, though. I think he could be used by anybody with a sword. Path of Radiance only has one character in Titania. Solid choice.
Amazing choice, but one of the best choices that you can go with in that game.
Radiant Dawn has Micaiah and Soth.
Alright.
Awakening has Lon Ku. Blech. I can't stand Lon Ku. We'll talk about him one day. I don't like Lon Ku. Lon Ku, Tharia, Owain, and Severa. And all these kind of make sense. Looking at, because I have some of those memorized, but the Fire Emblem poll that they always do for the games, Lon Ku, Tharia, Owain, and Severa are very popular characters.
Are we sure Kellum wasn't in there? We just missed him?
I don't see him. But actually, kind of a sidebar. You know the Fire Emblem Cypher card game I mentioned?
Yes.
Kellum has a card where he's not on it.
That is outstanding.
I think, if I remember right, there's two versions of that card. One of it is obviously a normal card with him on it, and then the other card is the same card of him, but he's not on it. So that's funny.
That's another character who... Awakening had some pretty tropey characters, but darn it if I didn't love some of those tropes. Kellum was a fun one. It was just always being there, but no one could see him. And he's the big guy in the armor, of course. So much fun.
Yeah. One thing to also note about these Awakening characters is all these characters actually appeared as trophies as well. So, yeah, there's that. Fates has Hinoka, blah, Takumi, blah, Camilla, blah, Leo, blah. Actually, Leo's not bad. Elise and Azura. I'm just trolling you guys with Fates now. It's not really. The only character I really don't like here is Hinoka and Takumi. Camilla is a neutral for me.
Takumi is the true hero of the story. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to fight later. Yeah, so what rounds that out is Azura. And then for Fire Emblem Echoes, we have, and these two are actually together as one spirit, young Alm and young Celica.
That is going to be incredibly cute.
And then there is, the last one that actually finishes this list out is Tsubasa from Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Tokyo Mirage Sessions /FE?
I do remember seeing that one. I distinctly remember seeing that one in the direct, and she was one of the examples they used as someone who could digivolve or whatever it is.
Yeah, so apparently you get them to like a max level, and then you can turn them into a higher version of that. And for Tsubasa, basically her normal attire is that she kind of has like the traditional like school uniform outfit. And then when she was in her evolved form, it was her, oh crap, what's it called in that game? Carnage form?
Yeah, her Pegasus Knight form.
Yeah, it was her Pegasus Knight form where she's outfitted with like, that alternate attire, which makes me wonder because a lot of these Fire Emblem characters don't have alternate artwork for their advanced classes. Like going forward, I think Awakening onward, like Crom, Corrin, they don't have artwork for them. I'm not including like the Cypher artwork. I'm including like their actual like in-game sprite for they use for conversations and stuff.
Well, it's probably only going to be a select few that are able to promote. It's going to be like the 4-star, 5-star in gachas. It's going to be only the rarest, most elite ones. Oh, I am so scared for that spirits mode. It's just like that could be great. I could have a lot of fun with that because I enjoy gacha mechanics. I play a lot of games on my phone and iPad, and I love Xenoblade Chronicles too. And that the gacha mechanic of the blades was a huge part of that. It's a system that I could potentially love, but it's something that could easily be abused, especially if they potentially add microtransactions. I don't think they will, but it's not an impossibility.
Sakurai doesn't seem like a guy who would do that. He seems to be on the DLC route only. Because I remember there's an interview with him saying, he's like, people should probably be more upset that their game's getting sold to them in pieces.
I hope so. I want to be optimistic. If I had to say, I'm leaning towards it not having it, but that is a mechanic itself that is ripe for that sort of for microtransactions.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, since we're still kind of on the subject of Smash and Fire Emblem, one thing that they actually did include was a language selector. So if you want to play with Japanese Marth's voice, then I guess like you could still play with Japanese Marth's voice. I hope that's how they do it, because I think they mentioned something about Pokemon sounding different as well.
Yes, like the Pokemon would sound different in each language. I think they showed it each section. They went through each language and showed a couple of things. Especially they focused on the narrator, the announcer. But Villager. I think they did say the voices would have that.
Moribito. Yeah, so if you're looking forward to this will be the first time we actually have Marth in English in the game.
We didn't have it in 4?
No, he was still voiced by I can't think of his name. I can see his name in my mind, but I know if I say I'm going to butcher it. But yeah, he was still voiced by his Japanese voice actor. It was the same. It was the same reused lines from Melee.
I look forward to it. I look forward to having Ike fight for his friends once again.
I hope they change that line.
No, it's the best.
It's probably.
My friends.
It's meme worthy, but at the same time, it's not what he actually says.
No, it's not.
And you'll actually notice, like, if you go play Smash Bros. 4 and he does the victory taunt where he throws his sword in the ground, there's like a long pause for whatever reason. And that's because the Japanese version of that phrase is actually much longer, and it's not "I fight for my friends." It's something along the lines of excuse me. It's something along the lines of him talking about how he fights for people who are unable to protect themselves, or something like that. I can't remember. There's a Reddit thread for it.
Well, Ike is one of those noble type of fellas.
Yeah. Speaking of, Ike is now going to be voiced by Craig Chun. So he's going to get a new voice actor. And well, he's not really like new, because he has been voicing Ike in. I think he voices Ike in Fates. I think he voices him in. Well, obviously he voices him in Fire Emblem Heroes, but he also is the voice of Ephraim, the Lord of Fire Emblem 8.
I just have a big smile on my face right now because I just flash back to the Path of Radiance cutscenes with some of the voice with some of the voice acting in that. Oh, that's going to be fun when we eventually get to that one. Oh, I can't wait. The future is going to be so much fun for the Emblem Support podcast.
It definitely is. But I think that closes out anything Smash, unless you want to
add. We could talk about how there are always all the swordsmen in it, who we possibly want to possibly be in Smash if we could trade someone out. But
yeah, we'll get to that in the closing stuff.
All right.
Moving on from that, as far as Fire Emblem... Actually, no, we're still on Fire Emblem Smash. I'm sorry. We have... on the official Smash Bros. Website, there are 2 new remixes listed for Fire Emblem. One of them being a Fire Emblem Heroes remix, which I don't care for. And the other one is it's a remix of Id Purpose, which is the final level theme from Fire Emblem Awakening. Have you heard these?
I have not heard them.
The one for Fire Emblem Heroes is very boring, very lazy. It's the same thing with Id Purpose. Like, I actually kind of had to listen to it a couple of times to figure out that this was a different remix of that song. I was just like, out of all the songs in the Fire Emblem franchise, you have to pick the one song that, 1, does not need a remix because it's very epic enough on its own, and 2, lazy. I hate that, because I thought that Fire Emblem music, like Fire Emblem and Star Fox, have great music. And so...
sadly, I've never been one to go through the Smash sound archives, but they've got how many of the over 900 music pieces do they have on the website? Do they have them all already up there?
No, they only have like a select few for each series. But there is there's a Game Explain covered this on one of their videos where they looked at that initial video that they put out, and they kind of analyzed where each song came from that was shown in that trailer. And one of them is a brand new remix of what's called, I think they said the title was Beyond the Sky from Binding Blade. Sorry. I'm so used to saying FE6, FE7, but I'm trying to be more title specific. But yeah, it's from Binding Blade, Roy's game. And it's like, why did you put that on the website? Because it actually sounded pretty good.
In the future, we're just... Every time I look at and hear that, oh yeah, they have a new remix of this song from this game, it's just like my brain immediately pops into like, we're getting a remake. That's a sign. That's the sign. We're going to get it soon. It's coming. Please tell me it's true. Please tell me it's true.
It would be nice.
That's the dream.
But I think that's all basically the Smash Fire Emblem stuff that I've got. But since we ended on music, let's leap to our next piece of quote-unquote news. Fire Emblem The Blazing Sword and Fire Emblem Binding Blade are getting brand new soundtrack releases with like this brand new art that's been passed around everywhere.
Is it just that one piece of art, one piece of beautiful art, or is there going to be like an art book sort of thing with it? Do we know?
Not that I know of. The only thing that I know is just that one piece of art's been passed around.
It is a beautiful piece of artwork. If you haven't seen it, it's the 3 lords from Blazing Sword, standing sort of on top of a mountain, and on the other half of the mountain is Roy and Liliana staring off into the distance. It is beautiful.
It's so good. And people are like really excited for this, but this actually isn't the first release of these soundtracks. They've actually been released several times before in Japan. And I don't know if they were like commercial releases where everyone could buy them, or it was just, oh, you mail this in and you get this. So I don't know. People are treating like this is the very first release of the soundtrack, so that could be it. It should also be noted that this coincides with the game's 15th anniversary. I'm sorry, Blazing Sword's 15th anniversary is this year. Was earlier this year for Japan, and then I believe it's later this month to date the podcast. It's going to be later this month for North America. I'm not sure when Europe got it. It may have been like a little bit sometime next year. Or sorry, the year after.
To be fair, like some of those previous releases didn't have that beautiful piece of artwork with it.
Oh, that's true.
So it didn't have like as big a promotion around it as like, and I haven't seen any marketing about this one, but this one has a small viral marketing just because of good artwork.
Yeah. Well, it was just a couple of years ago that we actually got the first official release, or again, what I presume is the first official release of Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn soundtrack. So, I think one of their Japanese websites actually updated with some new merchandise, and they actually noted that next year was the 15th anniversary for Sacred Stone. So, maybe we'll be getting a release of that pretty soon too.
It'd be nice. It hasn't got as much love as 6 and 7, because I'm going to say 6 and 7 because I don't have the names stamped into my head. Sadly, I would have to have them written out in front of me, at least for now. But 8 has gotten some love. It has been released on the 3. It was released on the 3DS. It was released on the Wii U Marketplace, or I should say, Sacred Stones were released on the 3DS Marketplace as a part of that opening bundle if you bought it early.
Ambassador program. But it was never actually released to buy for some stupid reason because I would have paid. But Sacred Stones has gotten some love. It's gotten some representation in heroes, so they're not ignoring it. Well, they're not avoiding it like the plague. So,
I could have seen that happen because like that Sacred Stones is a story in its own universe. It's not connected to like Marth or any of the actual Fire Emblem stuff like the other games. So it's good to see it acknowledged when I could easily see it being ignored.
Yeah. So I mean I guess that's everything that I've got. I didn't really look up too much since this is just our prologue episode. We wanted to kind of try things out and see, how good we were at this. And I guess that means we'll move on to our closing, but we have a question for you all. Yes, a question. You can reach us at eSupportPodcast on Twitter, drop us a line, ask us questions, but we have one specific question that we want to ask you. And that is, we were talking about Smash Brothers earlier. We now know that Fire Emblem has 8 individual characters. And so our question to you is, what would your ideal 8 characters for Smash Brothers, what would they be? Would you remove anybody out? Would you replace someone? I'm only going to have one restriction for this question, and that's Marth has to stay. The other 7 are completely up to you. And the reason why I say Marth has to stay is because Marth is, he's your Link, he's your Mario, he's your Pikachu of the franchise. So other than that, they're all yours to choose. And once again, you can release us. You can reach us at the eSupport Podcast on Twitter. And I do have an email for the podcast as well, but I cannot remember it at this moment.
Try to look at the list of the Fire Emblem characters to see who I would potentially change out. I want to say that I want to get rid of Corrin because I don't like Corrin, but I actually like the dragon mechanic to that one, so that can stay. Like Robin, I love the whole mechanic with the tome. Roy, I just want to stay for sentimental reasons because he has a fire sword. Fire swords are great. Ike has his own mechanics which work out well. Of course, Marth.
Very difficult, isn't it?
It is. It probably Lucina and or Chrom would have to go for me.
To me, that's the same exact thing, Lucina and Chrom, because they don't add anything. And Chrom's already represented via Final Smash. Yeah, if you haven't heard, Robin's Final Smash is actually the same and still features Chrom in it.
All right. So I'd probably get rid of Chrom and put in Hector for the sake of having an Axelord, and probably get rid of Lucina and put in Ephraim for the sake of having a Lance user in there. Or, yeah, that'd probably be it. Those are the easy choices, so that might be it.
I think I'm on the same lines as you. Roy. Martha's the face of the franchise. Roy's my boy. Again, like you said, he has a fire sword. He's a clone, not an echo, a clone or whatever. So he kind of has his own like moves and things like that he can do. That's completely unique to him. Well, I don't say completely, but you know what I mean. Corrin, I don't really care for the character of Corrin, but they have a unique moveset, and plus you can actually have a male or female version, so that kind of gives you that diversity factor as well. It's a similar thing with Robin, except again, Robin they have their own moveset, and you can also go male or female. Plus, Robin's a lot of ways that people really got into the franchise, so I feel like if you take him out, you lose a lot of stuff. So Robin stays, because he's a solid 3DS representative, I think. Crom goes for Hector, for reasons that you said, with the axe, and then I want to say this is tough because I love Sacred Stones, because I just said a second ago, Ephraim, but a part of me wants to say put Celica in, so you have another female fighter in the franchise overall. And she also uses swords and magic, but her magic's much different than Robin's, because she doesn't use tomes for hers.
Yeah.
And her spell list is also different. She has more like fire spells, if I remember right.
Yeah, but if you wanted to switch out Robin for Celica, that would be a decent choice. I thought of something that needs to go. I don't want this person to go, but we have to get rid of Ike. We have to put in the true hero, Takumi. Takumi is.
Oh no!
We need the archer, and he can have possibly a Shinin palette swap, so we can get the other greatest archer of all time in there. The two true heroes of the Fire Emblem franchise.
You're not doing this. We're not putting Takumi in. No. Hate Takumi.
Love Takumi.
Actually, you know what you could do? Like, here's the thing about Lyn is like Lyn also has access to bows, so you could have a sword and bow move set for Lyn. And she's already in Smash. She's already super popular. It's like, who do you take out for her though? So
have her assassinate Toon Link.
Maybe. Well, here's actually the thing I had for Crom originally back in 2014, or I guess 2013, before we really knew what Fire Emblem character was going to be in the game. I said, hey, you could do Crom and Robin or Crom and Lucina and have them have an ice climbers like mechanic where they're kind of like bonded together because it mirrors the pair up system. Unfortunately, as it turns out, the 3DS couldn't handle the ice climbers or transformation characters, so they got ice climbers got axed for that reason. The transformation characters got put separate or cut, like in the terms of Pokemon Trainer. But and Lucina got made into a clone, so that's what I originally thought would make a good character for Awakening, but they didn't do that. Now we've got a clone. I'm sorry, now we got two echoes from that game.
I cannot wait. I'm back to being on the hype train for Smash. I was already they showed the video of the Power of Light or whatever that story mode is called, where Kirby's going to save the day. After knowing about all these spirits, especially from the Fire Emblem world, I'm all hyped up on that. I'm ready to basically make that a Fire Emblem fighting game for me.
It would be nice just to have just a straight Fire Emblem edition of Smash Brothers.
Yeah, we already got a Muso game. Maybe we can get an actual straight-up fighting game.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think that'll close out the question. What? So Cardos, what's your final list again?
My final list: Marth, Roy, Hector, Ephraim, Robin. Actually, I'm going to switch out Robin for Celica. Celica, Corrin. I could probably go someone else for Corrin, but nah. Takumi for Ike. And what is the last one that my brain is shutting out? Crud. Oh well.
Was it Roy?
I think I said Roy, but let's just add Roy again for the heck of it.
All right, my final list would be.
Should have written this down.
Yeah, next time we'll have pen and paper in front of us, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Marth, Roy. You know what? I'm going to switch out Robin for Celica too. Keep Corrin. Actually, you know what? Keep Corrin, but only put the female version in. How about that?
That works.
Because I never seen anybody use Melkorn. Hector for the axe. Have Lynn replace Lucina. And I'm going to keep Ike. I think that's 8. Should have wrote it down.
Yeah, we should have written this down. It's the first episode. We're allowed to have mistakes, I think, maybe.
I'm not perfect, okay?